In this presentation, we will track and pay bills that have been entered in the system in the past. Here we go with Xero. Here we are in our Get Great Guitars dashboard. We're going to be opening up the trial balance first. So we're going to select the old accounting drop down and go down to the trusty trial balance, the trusty TB. We're going to be changing the dates up top to the month of February because that's the month that we're going to be working on. Let's go ahead and duplicate the tab. We're going to right click on the tab up top and duplicate that tab so we have the report on the right. We're going to be entering stuff, data, and whatever else we're going to do on the left tab. We're going to be changing the date up top, changing that date over to February 29th. Then we will update that report. We're going to be paying bills. So basically, paying bills means that we have things that are in this accounts payable account, which is a liability account. So if we scroll on down to the accounts payable, we have bills that we need to pay that are included in there. We need to list out those bills that need to be paid, sort them, and then pay them, which means the accounts payable will be going down and the other side will be decreasing the checking account. Note, if we go on over to our flowchart, this is in QuickBooks Desktop, just note in the flowchart here, if we're in the vendor section, that's going to be the typical kind of case in the vendor section. So either we simply just pay the bills when we get them, like the utility bill and vendor bill and the bills that we have for the inventory that we purchase. We just pay them with a check possibly or electronic payment upon receipt, or we put them in the system as bills and then pay the bills. Note that the larger a company gets, the more likely they are going to have a need for somebody, basically full-time, maybe a whole team, tracking the bills that need to be paid, when they need to pay them, and entering those into the system. So we're going to go back over to the first tab now. Let's go to the first tab within Xero. We're going to go back onto the dashboard. So let's go to the dashboard. We're going to scroll down to the first items within the dashboard. I'm kind of zoomed in here. I'm going to let it go. Xero's pretty good at being zoomed in a bit and not doing too many funny things. But remember, if it does do some funny things, you want to get back down to 100% on the screen rather than a zoom in feature. Okay, so we're going to go down to the bills you need to pay. Bills you need to pay. Within the bills we need to pay, we're going to go to the awaiting payment ones because those are the ones that are awaiting payment that we're going to go in and pay now. We only have two at this point in time. Those for our two vendors. So we purchased inventory. We had a purchase order, then the inventory came. So in these two cases, just note the story in our flowchart here. We had a purchase order requesting the inventory. The inventory came, or imagine the inventory came in like a box with a guitar and like a bill on it. And then we entered the bill into the system. And that's where we are now, because now we owe the bill. Now we need to pay the bill. So we're going to go back over. We're only going to pay one of them at this point in time. We're going to be paying Fender. Note when you're in here, you can sort by reference number from the date of what is going to be due and so on. We're going to be paying the Fender bill. Now we could do this by going into this actual bill as we've seen in the past, and then scrolling down and saying we want to make the payment at the bottom and enter the detailed information, and whether it be a check or some other kind of payment, if it's a check, we can check this one off. If I go back up top, I'm going to go back to the dashboard, which I could do here. Probably would have been better to use the cookie trail. I could also check them off and make a payment. So I'm going to check it off this time, make a payment. This time I'm going to pay it by check. So I'm going to say I want to make a payment. I want to make it by check. So then I'm going to make the payment out of the bank account. We want to make it out of the checking account. Make sure it's not out of the clearing account. And so there's going to be the check that we're going to have. And then we can go ahead and say, and we can check the numbering. So you can check the check number in here. I'm going to go ahead and save as a PDF. It will then generate the check for us. So note, here's the check. If we wanted to print it now, if we had pre-printed checks, we could put those checks into the printer and print it out basically from this PDF file onto the actual check. So, and note that the pre-numbered system in the system here in Xero should match the pre-numbered checks that you have outside, and that's going to be kind of an internal control with regards to writing the checks. So if we close this back out, note that you can also go into the checks. If we go back on into the dashboard up top, and note that these drop downs are some of the areas where Xero does have some problems sometimes in the zoom in my experience. So I'm going to bring it back down to 100% when I go to these drop downs and I'm looking for something new within the drop downs, or something funny happens in these drop downs, then try zooming back out to that 100%. Then I would go down to the checks down below. And here's our check. So we only have the one check here right now. So you can obviously take that check and then you can print it again. You can print it to the PDF printer, which will allow you to then print it on the pre-printed checks if that's a system that you're using. If you're using pre-printed checks within Xero. Now let's go back to the dashboard here. Let's take a look at the bills section one more time. If we go on down to the bills you need to pay, we should have one less bill we need to pay, which means we only have one bill we need to pay, which is pretty good. That's not a lot of bills. It's kind of a large dollar amount. We get the $1,200 bill, but the other bill has, of course, disappeared at this point because it has been paid. If we move over to the paid side of things on this top menu bar, then we're going to see that Fender bill that has now been moved over to the paid item. We can also, of course, search this by contacts as well and consider the individual contact in terms of Fender, which is our vendor that we paid off, and see that detail as well. Let's go back to the trial balance now, and let's update the trial balance so we're working with a report that's up to date. Then we're going to go into the checking account. We should see in the checking account that we have paid off a bill. So here it is, and I put it in there as of February 1st. I was going to put a later date, but I'll keep it there. February 1st, it's in the correct month, so there is the payment on that bill. Then if we go on back up and we go back to the trusty trial balance, the good old TB trial balance, we should go down to the accounts payable and see the other side, the AP accounts payable going down. So that's going to be a liability account. Here's the accounts payable. Only that $1,200 left. You'll recall that's that other outstanding bill for Epiphone that we haven't yet paid. Still an outstanding one because the new vendor, Fender, we did pay. So there we go. We paid off that vendor, and that's going to decrease there. If we look at the report to give us supporting documentation for the accounts payable, which means it's going to break it out by who we owe, we would have a report saying, hey, we only owe, I think, Epiphone at this point in time. Let's go back to the trial balance. So here is the trial balance. This is where we are now. We will be printing the trial balance out for you at the end of every presentation that we remember to do so, where we made a change, so you can check your numbers there. So that's it for now. Let's get out of here.